even a child who is raped by her own father, in other words, there's been incest, cannot get an abortion in Texas or in some other states. A child is forced to take to term a pregnancy from her own father. Come on, how cruel can you get? This is a first draft. I do expect there will be some changes in the language when it reaches its final draft or final opinion, which will likely be released within the next 6 weeks or so, at least by the end of June. But the point is that the argument doesn't make sense. First of all, this is not the first time the Supreme Court is addressing this issue. Even some of the anti-choice justices have admitted when they testified at the United States Senate confirmation hearings that were held when they were nominated, 3 of them being nominated by former President Trump, this Roe v. Wade is not just a precedent, it's a super precedent, because it has been affirmed many times in other cases that attempted to challenge it. So they're saying that it's wrong, that it was wrongly decided, as the justice was saying, makes no sense. First of all, 5 of the 9 justices who voted for it in the first place in 1973, when Roe v. Wade was decided, were Republicans. And all of the justices who appear now to constitute the majority, who would overrule, reverse, undercut Roe v. Wade, strike it down, are also Republican. So, it is dangerous. It is going down a slippery slope, as we say in the law, because it is based on the right of privacy, the right of, due process, the right to liberty. And, where else is it going to go? It's also based on former decisions like Griswold that decided that, couples can use contraception if they want to, that marital relationship is the intimate relationship that needs to be protected because of the right to privacy. So is that going to be next, that they will strike down Griswold and say that in their own bedroom, couples can't use contraception? Will they also strike down marriage equality, also known as same-sex marriage, which is also based on, in part, at least, on the right to privacy? And what about interracial marriage? That's something else that might in the future be struck down. And even though the language in this opinion purports to indicate that this issue of privacy is limited to the abortion issue, none of us who are pro-choice that I have heard speak out on this issue believe that that will be the case. Yeah. That it will be able to be at least used somehow as guidance in future decisions. And it really is very dangerous that it indicates, or appears to indicate, that the right to privacy no longer exists, at least not for the purposes of reproductive health, or at least for abortion.
I suppose, what do you make of the argument, as I understand it? See if I have this right, that some people would believe that the question of abortion is not a binary yes or no choice. It is something where lines have to be drawn at various different points for a decision to be made. Therefore, this is a judgment that is susceptible to the democratic process. Different countries, different states within countries can set different rules, and it's not an ineffable overarching right that is at stake, but actually a position that needs to be taken. And therefore, it is absolutely right that a position that needs to be taken is subject to democratic scrutiny, and the ability for the people, via whoever they elect to enact such legislation, are making the decisions as to what is right or wrong in an area that is very contested.
Not at all true from my point of view, because not if it's a constitutional right that is protected by the United States Constitution. No, I mean, people can't vote state by state whether or not individuals have the right to, for example, the First Amendment, the right of free speech, the right of assembly, the right to the free exercise of their religion. No, states can't, for example, vote and say, no, we agree you don't have the right to the free exercise of your religion or the free exercise of your speech. These are rights that are protected by the United States Constitution. And no, they're not subject to the whims and the will or even the vote of people in each state. And I don't think that abortion should be either.
And yet, though, this is a deeply politicized Supreme Court. So in some ways, there's an argument you end up with the worst of both worlds. You end up with the tug and pull of politics because it's a question of a Republican-Democrat split in this instance. I know the point you made about it not being before. So you get the politics, but you don't get the democracy by the Supreme Court being able to overturn this constitutional right.
Well, actually, I mean, democracy is created by the framework of our country, which is the United States Constitution. So, it has been subject to interpretation over the years. And of course, the liberals or the more progressives on the court look at it as interpreting the spirit of the Constitution. In other words, the conservatives or, the extremists will look at it as, no, it's got to be exactly in the letter of the words of the Constitution for it to exist, or rooted in the history somehow. Well, in the history of our country, there was slavery. Okay, so for many years, even under the Constitution, slaves were not treated as persons and they didn't have a right to vote. So, this has been evolving. Rights have been evolving. Amendments have been added to the Constitution. Court cases have interpreted fundamental rights. But we do not believe that women are, can have their bodies subjected to a vote. That's exactly what happened before 1973, before Roe v. Wade, when states criminalized abortion. When I had to have an abortion, when it was crime for a doctor to provide an abortion, although not for a woman to receive it. And so women like me had to be subjected to back alley abortions. And you had to go state by state. Many women didn't have money to travel to another state, or even often travel to their own state, within their own state. So many women died or were maimed by illegal abortions. We don't want that to happen again in our country. And this is a denial of a woman's constitutional rights. So no, it shouldn't be subjected to a vote. And if you say, okay, let's have it subjected to a vote, look what's happening in half the states of the United States. You take Texas, for example. Even a child who is raped by her own father, in other words, there's been incest, cannot get an abortion in Texas or in some other states. A child is forced to take to term a pregnancy from her own father. Come on, how cruel can you get? So we're not leaving this to states, and we have to fight back against this. And we have to have a federal law, which Congress could pass if we could only get the votes to break a filibuster in the United States Senate, if we could vote out the anti-choice Republican United States senators. Then we get a federal law, which has been passed by the House of Representatives, for the Women's Health Protection Act, which would make abortion legal all over the United States. It would be a federal law. It would be, as the president said, codified, which means made part of the federal law.
It's such a pleasure to talk to you, Gloria. Just finally, you knew Norma McCorvey, aka Jane Roe, from Roe versus Wade. You made reference to your own experience. how personally do you feel this? You had to have an illegal abortion which threatened your life. It was dangerous for you because you couldn't get it done safely. You knew Jane Roe. When you talk to me about this now, talk to people on Times Radio about this, how are you personally feeling?
It's just a catastrophe. It's horrific. Most of all, it is cruel and it is dangerous to the life and the health and the safety of women. And the women and girls that it hurts the most are poor women, women of color, young women, and rural women. These are the women who may not be able to even get bus fare to go to another state or to fill the tanks in their automobiles, if they have any cars that they have access to pay for it, to go to another state, as haven states like California, New York, and some others where they will still be able to get safe and legal abortions. Maybe they don't even, maybe they're not able to take time off from work because they might lose their job if they take time off to go to another state to get an abortion. Maybe they can't afford childcare. These are the young women, the poor women, the women of color, the rural women who don't have a voice, who don't have power, who don't have economic means. So what's going to happen is mandatory motherhood, which is what the anti-choice people want. The anti-choice people want a fertilized egg to have more rights than an adult woman. This is simply not acceptable in the United States of America or anywhere on this planet. A woman has to have the right to choose. And the point is, they should trust women, not trust elected officials who've never met the woman who's pregnant and needs an abortion. Whether they're federal or state, not to trust the governors. They are using a woman's womb as a political football, as a way to pander to their base, to motivate their base, which is anti-choice, to get out and vote for them, just so that they can have a continued career in politics. Well, that is unacceptable, to throw women and girls under the bus, to be so cruel to these little rape victims who are victims of incest. And this is not to be tolerated. It's just for base political motives. It's callous. And we are going to fight back. Next week, on May 14th, there are going to be pro-choice rallies all over this nation. And I will be speaking at City Hall in Los Angeles as one of the featured speakers against this potential overturning of Roe v. Wade. We are going to fight back. We will never accept this. We never should accept this. And I might add, by the way, that the main base of the Republican Party is male. In other words, men. And women are the primary voters in the Democratic Party. So I see this as an attempt by many men, not all men, because many men are pro-choice, but by many Republican men to try to control women and to have a competition to see who can endanger the lives of women the most, by some passing 15, you can't have an abortion after 15 weeks, and some other men in some other states say, oh no, let's risk the life of women and girls more by saying you can't have a legal abortion after 6 weeks, knowing that they're not stopping abortion. They're just stopping safe and legal and available and affordable abortions. They don't care if women and girls die or were maimed. We do care, and we are going to vote many of them out of office. Even President Biden said today that this is extreme, and they are extremists, and it cannot be accepted and will not be tolerated. And I will say, no justice, no peace.